Hey, welcome to the We're Better Together podcast. I'm Ian Stevenson.
And I'm Daniel Arduña. We come from different backgrounds, but we're working together. So our goal is to help you navigate being better together in the various sectors of your life by bringing you a once-a-month interview and some stimulating thoughts on the weeks in between.
We hope this podcast keeps you tracking on building something better together, whether it's your marriage, your family, your workplace. We want to serve you. So here's today's episode.
We are back with another 10-minute tune-up on this Monday and excited to share with you around this idea of releasing control. Now, I say that we are excited to share about that. Hopefully, that's actually the truth, because I know that Ian and I both have maybe had some challenges over our years and experiences of opportunities to release control. And maybe you, as you're listening to this, maybe you're someone as well. I would imagine and believe that many people out there at some point in their life, they struggle with giving over control to someone else for something in their life at all. And yet we want to try to dive in and maybe learn a little bit today about what happens when we're actually willing to do so. When we're willing to actually release control and thinking about being better together, what are some of the outcomes that could actually happen? Ian, coming to you as you think about the various circles of your life where you have engagement. What starts to come to mind for you when you think about releasing control, what that's looked like for you?
Well, in our last tune-up, we talked about the whole idea of participate, engage, and ownership. And I don't think you ever get to ownership if the leader isn't willing to let go of control and let people actually own something.
Yes.
Like actually have the ownership of it. I mean, for me, in leading a team here in our city that's trying to work together, I've had to learn how to let go of like even big events that I used to have my hands in a lot. And I used to like to plan. I like the creative part of it. And I like creating that energy. But I realized in order for us to continue to create more unity in our city, I couldn't keep doing it all. Somebody else had to have ownership of that. And I had to let it go and let them own it and do it the way they were going to do it, which was actually a little bit different than maybe how I would. And in some ways they did it better, but in other ways there were things that were missing. So there's sort of like this tension between really wanting to grow the unity and really wanting to maintain control. And I once heard a quote that you can lead or you can be in control, but you can't do both. And so at some point in your leadership towards unity, you've got to let go of control. And it's not easy, like you said, but man, I've had to learn it. What about you?
Yeah, I think that there's various places in my life where control can come into play. I think about, for myself, one thing I reflect on is I think about somebody, a mentor, a boss of mine when I was younger, inexperienced in some of the work that I was doing. And now being older and understanding how control can be hard to give over. They were willing to give over control for me to plan an event for something that we were doing. And plan the event, did the event, and then we got to sit back down and I got to grade how the different aspects of the event went. And sure enough, as you just said, there were some aspects of it where I gave myself an F in certain areas because I just didn't do it well. I failed in some of those areas, and yet it was in this healthy dialogue conversation, not a tear down way that it was done. There were areas where it succeeded some. And now I look back in the leadership position I'm in now, and I just chuckle at how challenging that could have been for my boss and my mentor to hand over to me, knowing that I was inexperienced. And yet within that, because my boss was willing to do so, there was so much growth opportunity for me. There was an opportunity given for me to fail, to succeed in some ways, yet to learn from that, to build up a little bit of experience so that maybe the next time that happened, or another point down the road in my life where I was put in a spot of maybe to lead in some kind of way, I was given the opportunity to grow and learn from that. And that was huge. And now I think all these years later too, was just sharing with Ian, even as we were preparing for this 10-minute tune-up, I've got the soccer team that I help coach, and we're about to walk through a culture and leadership class. And yet one of the things that we really want to do that's hard is that we want to give some control over to our athletes to help us determine, what does this team mean? What does this team stand for? What are the standards that we're going to have? Now, I know that not every standard or everything that they have to say is going to be something that works. But I do believe as we release some control, there's going to be things that they come up with that maybe we weren't thinking of, or they have a different set of eyes on, and something that's actually going to be valuable to being better together in that aspect of being a team. And so I hope somewhere down the line here in a few months, in another 10-minute tune-up or opportunity, maybe we'll be able to share about how that went. But I think those are two different sides to it, where I've experienced someone giving control over to me, and right now where I'm wrestling with giving some control over that's not easy.
Yeah, to be better together, there's no way, if you're going to be better together, that one person can control it all. So even like in a marriage or in a family dynamic or in a workplace, it's being clear with who has what. And so there's got to be give and take. There's got to be even using each other's strengths and weaknesses in that. And sometimes we hold on to something too long, and it keeps us from being better together. Just because we won't take a look at what is it that maybe I can let go of that would help bring more ownership from someone else in the mix. Yeah. And I love what you're doing with your team. Like, you're giving the athletes some ownership by letting go of that control and asking them, hey, what do you think? What do you think the values of our team should be, and what direction we should go? And, it's so important in this process of creating a better together atmosphere. But I think sometimes as leaders, we don't even see the areas where we're maybe being more controlling than we should. And so I think that's kind of our challenge in the tune-up today, right, Daniel? Like, we want our listeners, all of you out there, whether it's in your marriage or your family or your workplace, your team, where is it that perhaps you're holding on to a little more control than you need to? Is there an area you can let go of some control and invite others to have some say in it, have some ownership in it, right?
Yeah, and I just want to encourage our listeners that this can be a hard concept to do, to let go. And yet, in some of my experience over the years, the more that I've been willing to release control here and there are some ways that it's become easier, but I think it's because I can see some of the results of what happens when you do so. The opportunities created for other people to grow, the ways that I learn within that. And I think I want to encourage our listeners too, that when you release control, doesn't mean that you still don't have a part to play. As Ian may release some control in some of the work that he's doing for someone else to lead something, he still may be a sounding board to that person as they work through whatever they're leading. As what's happening with the soccer team, there's still some gifting within me to help guide the conversation. I'm going to guide the conversation around what this team stands for and still play a role in that way. But the athletes are going to be given this opportunity, to what you said, to ultimately have ownership in what it is that we're doing. And so also be reminded that you still may have a part to play when you release control, but are you willing to give that opportunity? Because I think one of the things we really want people to walk away with is that if you're not willing to give over control sometimes in your life, you may be stripping someone from an opportunity to grow and really bring something of value to the team, and stripping yourself of being able to receive what someone else might bring in that control that you're releasing.
Yeah, man, I can testify to that, because I remember in our setting, I've let go of some of our big events, and honestly, that leader's done it better than me.
Yeah.
And I've learned from them by watching them. And another thing that came to my mind as you were sharing too, just as you're trying to create that better together environment, one of the leaders, actually, he was a pastor that I worked with, Tim Selleck. He spoke to me as a young leader when I came onto that staff. He sat me down and he said, "Ian, I want you to know it's okay to fail. I'm giving you ownership of this piece, and I just want you to give it your best, do all you can, and go for it, and it's okay to fail." And creating that environment I can't tell you how much more ownership it gave me of being in the mix, and that permission to be me and to go for it. I mean, it was huge. So I thank him for that. And I know for me, it's been hard to learn that sometimes with others that I've overseen, but boy, that was a gift to me, huge gift. So give that gift to those in your family, in your marriage, on your team. Invite them in, give them permission to fail, but let go of control and let them go for something.
So as you walk away from this 10-minute tune-up today, we want you to think about this. Think about a time where someone released control to you and what that meant to you. And then be thinking about in your life, in any of the circles of involvement you have, where is an area, whether your family, whether work, whether team, any of those areas, where's a spot that you can release a little bit of control to someone else and see what happens in the midst of that. We're so thankful to have you continue to journey with us through this We Are Better Together podcast. We will see you next Monday.
Thanks for listening.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning in today. If there's anything you heard today that was helpful to you, that you think might be helpful to somebody else,
please like, subscribe, and share this podcast so we can help others be better together as well.